Hi, I'm Jay Gruenke, founder of The Balanced Runner. I've been helping runners from beginner to Olympian improve their form and performance since 2003. And I'm here today with another stuck at home running form tip for you from my living room to yours, where it is again violin lesson day for my son. You can hear in the background opportunity to become a better runner. So I've been this week addressing some questions that people have sent in to me. And one of them was about tender metatarsal heads. And I poked around on YouTube even, and there isn't so much about that for runners. But in my clients, I see very consistently the same phenomenon. And that can make this potentially pretty easy to resolve. And otherwise, it can be really pretty tenacious. So I hope that's good news for you. So what do I mean by metatarsal heads to begin with? This would be the ball of the foot. So I was walking around barefoot this morning. Hopefully my feet are not too filthy. So this area. So, and for runners to get like a tender spot here or here, you can also, it can be called metatarsalgia. Sometimes you get an irritation of the nerve between between two of the bones, and that would could be Morton's neuroma. So there are a couple different names, but just speaking because I'm not a medical person and I don't deal with the medical side of things. So what injury exactly it is isn't so much my concern. My concern is what are you doing with your whole body that's creating stress on this part? And then exactly how that stress plays out in terms of creating an injury is less important to the question of what do we do about your movement so that you can remove that stress. So what I see in all of my clients who have this problem, we've seen them after the injury started. So chicken and egg, which came first. If you have sore metatarsals, then you're going to stiffen your ankle if something else made them sore. You stepped on a stone or something and created a little inflammation there. Yeah, inflammation. Created a little damage, then you get inflammation and you also get pain. So it could be something like that, or it could be something that developed because of how you were moving when you ran. But it for our purposes of like how to resolve it, it doesn't matter whether the stiff ankle came before or after the metatarsal pain, because if you don't relieve that, every step irritates the metatarsal head, and then it lingers for a really long time. So why does a stiff ankle create stress at the metatarsal heads? It's what I call the ski boot phenomenon. So if you've ever walked in downhill ski boots that lock your ankle in so that it can only bend a little bit, then you know that when you, I've never tried to fake this with, let me see, that's too low. I'm the headless running form teacher. Then you know that what you do, what happens when you walk in ski boots is you put your heel down, the boot goes flat, and then suddenly you're up on your toe because your ankle can't, like normally when you walk, you put your foot down, you put your weight onto it, and then as your weight moves forward, your ankle is bending a little bit in order to allow you to pass the foot, right? So right here, my ankle of this foot is bending so that I can go past it, right? But a ski boot won't allow you to do that. So at the point at which your ankle might start to bend, instead you're up onto your toes, but your weight is still back on the foot. So you get this sort of katuk, 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 katuk thing that happens. I wish if I had ski boots here, I would put them on so that I could properly demonstrate, but I don't. So you are, instead of having your weight kind of distributed across the sole of your foot and moving towards the front of your foot, but still spread out, it pops up onto your toe while your body is still on your foot. So your weight should be like here, and instead it's all here. But you haven't moved forward off your foot yet. So normally when you're on your toes, there would be very little weight left on your foot. But if your ankle's stiff, you go to your toes early and you've still got a lot of weight there pushing down, and the joint's not made to handle that kind of load in that direction, and so it gets irritated and painful because your brain is saying, stop doing that. I'm going to send a pain signal every time you do that so that you stop doing that. But you keep walking and perhaps you keep running. Um, and so then you start fighting yourself. Your adaptations to, or compensations to pain, I guess is the more common term, are involuntary. You can't stop yourself doing them. So when you have pain on the front of your foot, you do stiffen your ankle to try to stop yourself from shifting your weight onto the front of your foot. But all that does is make your weight shift sooner to the front of your foot and too much weight. So it's a vicious cycle, like all compensations. And so you need to relieve that stiffness in the ankle so that when your weight moves to the front of your foot, your body is farther past your foot and the weight is more distributed and not focused at that spot. And so, hi, Adelino, I'll circle back to that question. So, simple first step would be to stretch your ankles. And if you test your ankle flexibility on your 2 feet, the foot that you've got the metatarsal pain on is going to be, you're going to have less range of motion. It's going to be stiffer. So I have a pre-run calf stretch video that actually badly needs to be refilmed, but it's actually an eccentric strengthening exercise that activates your calves and gets your ankles working through a range of motion before you run. You should definitely do that before you run. Not for a deep stretch. We're not talking about deep stretching. We're just trying to activate range of motion. So I know I said stretch, but don't try and stretch yourself out of this. We're trying to activate range of motion. Let's say it a third time. So that is a mandatory pre-run warm up for you. And even if walking is uncomfortable, a pre-walk warm up, you could just do it every day on the way out the door when we get back to going out our doors. That would be a great step to take. I also have a stronger step, which is the lesson Free Your Feet, Feldenkrais lesson that I effectively created, massively adapted from other material to relieve stress on the feet, including this kind of stress. And it really helps create ankle mobility in conjunction with your hip and your back, because ankle mobility by itself is not going to last, because there's something about how you're moving your whole body that is making that ankle stiffen. And probably it's not only the pain. Probably the stiffness did precede the pain. It usually does. So definitely get that lesson and do it. It'll be in the description below. And then also do the calf warm up when you go out the door. And then start asking the larger question. So if this was not an acute injury, if this was not, you stepped on a stone or whatever, then what is it about how you're coordinating your whole body that caused the ankle stiffness and the excessive pressure on the front of your foot? I find in a lot of cases is that the upper body is not mobile enough. Because, and Adelino, this gets to your question. So Adelino has asked in the chat, should we push off our toes or it's natural? So by the time you get to your toes, there's not much pushing left to do. There should not be a lot of weight there. The pushing happens through late stance and, very little at toe off. So but you can get into all kinds of trouble if you've got too much weight and have left too much pushing to do at the point when you're on your toes. Also, a lot of runners never get to their toes. So your toes should interact with the ground. You should feel your toes on the ground or, in your shoes at every toe off. And like I say, most runners don't. But no, you shouldn't be doing a big push at that point. And if you are, it's probably because your toe off is a cooperative action of your whole body. So in order to leave your foot, so this leg is in the air, I'm going into flight. Your whole body spirals off the foot like that. And if it doesn't, then you have to push really hard. Then you end up in a position where you're really pushing with your toes. And just a little inhibition of the mobility of your upper body is enough to create stress at the forefoot. And this is also a variation of this is also, in my clinical experience, what lies behind the runner's metatarsal stress fractures, actually, as well. So you're going to want to look at your upper body movement and stop trying to stop it if you've been doing that. You want a really good core action, and let yourself spiral away and your whole body work together to release your weight from your toes with every step. So that's the larger picture there. And if you don't know what I mean about the core action or the movement of the upper body, I'll post links to a couple of my relevant videos in the description below as well. So yes, exactly, Adelino, not a hard push. The pushing comes earlier. The pushing comes, so mid-stance, you're on your foot. The pushing starts the minute you pass mid-stance. And it's a whole body thing. The leg is straightening, the hip is going, that side of the pelvis is going down and back. This side of your body is lengthening, this side is shortening. Obviously, like I say, the knee and the ankle is straightening. Whoops, my shoulders are not looking right because the bookshelf is higher than the sofa. Let me see if I can fake that. Like that. So from here to here, sort of, is your big push off. And again, the toes, I mean, I really think Romanoff is right about this. Once you get below one body weight, there's no more work for your foot to do on the ground, and it's withdrawn. I just disagree that you withdraw it actively. If your weight is really getting off your foot, if you've got that action in motion, then your foot will just withdraw itself from the ground. And that last bit of bending of the big toe, the windlass mechanism, helps give a last little bit of spring that I think helps accelerate the foot up and forward, reducing the load on your thighs and on your hip flexors, but it's not pushing your body at that point. So I hope all of this is helpful and clarifying both about your toe off and about how to relieve this pain. And if you take these steps, if you mobilize your ankle just before each run, if you look at the coordination patterns, feet, ankles, hips, back, you'll have a more lasting reduction of tension there and tension through all the tissues. And then if you look at your core action and especially your upper body movement, and make sure that you're releasing your weight easily from the fronts of your feet rather than stiffening yourself and pushing hard with your feet at the end of at the point of toe off, then you should be good. And you'll come out of this injury a better runner than when you went in. Which is what we always aim for with injuries. Injuries are great opportunities to improve your running. So I hope this video has been valuable to you. If so, please hit like so YouTube knows to share it with other runners who need this information, and they do. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so and click the bell icon so that you get notifications when I release new videos. And please check out the resources I've put below and all the great resources I have for you at balancedrunner.com. Thanks very much, and I will see you tomorrow.